Welcome back everyone. We get to talk about another set of gaming consoles today, and it's been a minute since I talked about the PSPs, so I have to go back on them because I have to review all of them. Now the PSP genre of consoles are some of my favorite consoles that ever came out. Now I am more of a Nintendo DS type of person because that's what I had at that time, but I knew a ton of people that owned PSPs, and I was always so jealous of PSPs because they had so much different type of capability within them. Now with the PSP original one, I've already reviewed it. Great console, groundbreaking in so many different ways, but the PSP 2000 was also another groundbreaking console in my opinion. Now in a lot of ways it was an upgrade, in some ways it kind of was a downgrade as well. To some people I remember hearing some complaints, but I think the PSP 2000 was a solid console for sure at the end of the day. Now looking on the front, this thing had that same size display as the original PlayStation P, which was great. I really think that, display was really big, and I remember owning that DS Lite and being jealous about how big that display was on that PSP, that 1000 and 1001. Now, this was technically a slimmer design, and that's something that we've seen for pretty much all consoles that, Sony has released, except for the PlayStation 1. There's that standard console, and then there's that slim console that eventually comes out, and I am curious to see what Sony's going to do for the PlayStation 5 Slim, if they ever make one. Now, with this PSP 2000, it went from, 0.91 inches from that original PlayStation P to 0.73 inches on that newer PlayStation P Slim. Now on top of that, there were some improvements here and there, but that's a pretty big change, for having a slimmer console. Now I have heard that it made the battery a little bit smaller here and there, or that it was more power consumption. It was something like that. I'm not really 100% too sure. But on top of that, another pretty big change was that it actually brought a brighter LCD screen for the most part. And I remember having that original, PlayStation P while I still own one, and I didn't own one at the time early on, but later when I picked one up, I was surprised to see how reflective the display was on the original PlayStation P, and it was actually kind of hard to film some videos on it because it was reflecting so much over the sunlight. And now with the PlayStation P Slim, it was actually a much easier experience than the display, and the display actually looks pretty good. Now on top of that, the RAM that was inside of the PlayStation P doubled. So we actually went from a 32 megabytes of RAM to 64 megabytes of RAM. So that's a pretty big jump. I mean, from one console to the other, we normally don't see a crazy big jump like that in terms of RAM, especially for a portable console. And that's exactly what we got. Now, funny enough, and it always makes me wonder, and I've made videos on this from 3-4 years ago, and I want to see if anybody can ask this, And the question I had was, why is it that when we emulate a console, whenever we play, PSP games on a phone that has 2 gigabytes of RAM, why is it always so glitchy? Whereas on a PSP, it would be fine when it only has 64, megabytes of RAM. And the answer basically was the emulator has to emulate that console, which takes up a lot of RAM and a lot of power. So that kind of makes sense. If anybody wants to elaborate that, let me know in the comment section below because I'll definitely be reading them. But on top of that, another pretty big improvement beyond than just, the speeds and everything increasing and the load times increasing because of that increase in RAM was also an improvement in the web browser's performance. Now, as you know, I'm reading this off from Wikipedia, and that's actually a pretty cool thing too. Now, at that time, the DS Lite unfortunately didn't really have a web browser built in. And that was one of my biggest problems. I really felt like I wasn't really getting too much other than just the stock gaming stuff that I had on my regular device on my DS Lite. But I remember my DSi that came out in 2008. That was a solid console. I didn't have one at the time either, but I was so intrigued by it because that was a strong contender against the PlayStation P at the time, because pretty much every single thing you can do on a PSP, you can do in a DSi and vice versa. So that was a really awesome experience and just such an interesting thing for sure between them. Now, one of my favorite things about the whole entire PSP genre were the different skins and different type of, mods you can do for your PlayStation Ps. Now, first of all, I remember so often I would see so many bundles of a certain PSP, and I think Ratchet and Clank was one. If you guys remember, it's so nostalgic. I remember seeing those all the time when I would be walking at a mall and I would see GameStop and it would be buy the new PSP and Ratchet Clank combo, and the PSP would be skinned just like that game. And that was such a nostalgic thing. I will probably put some images on the display if I remember to do it, but that was a solid experience, and that was something that, again, this console pretty much, was a part of. Now beyond that, things that were specific for the PSP 2000, it was a slimmer console and it was a more solid console overall. Now there weren't really any crazy features that the original PSP had that, the PSP 2000 didn't have as far as I can tell. They both supported the same thing. If there was any backwards compatibility, they'd be able to support it too. So I think that's a pretty solid thing as well. I don't really think it was that big of a deal. But like we've seen, from going to a DS Lite to a DSi, they removed that Game Boy Advance slot, which a lot of people liked, but I'm okay with it. It's not really that big of a deal. Now, the biggest thing, as I always mention, the modding capability for these type of consoles. Now, first of all, I have even put several videos on my channel on how to mod your PSPs, but I've taken them down, I think, because I don't want YouTube taking them down. But I'll tell you, that's a pretty cool thing. I actually really enjoyed, modding my experience with those type of devices. But on top of that, when you have a device like this type of PSP, the amount of community that is still being, around for this console that came out in 2007 is pretty insane. When you look at it, even go to the PSP subreddit, there are so many people who are still talking about this console. Dude, these consoles came out forever ago, and the fact that people are still talking about it just shows how much of a movement that these type of consoles had. I mean, I just went onto the subreddit right now. There's still 295 people currently online on that subreddit, just randomly right now, which is crazy. So some people have also mentioned that the PSP was a failure. I don't think it was a failure. I think, mobile portable consoles kind of, went out of style, and people would say, well, the Nintendo Switch, why is that doing so well? It's kind of because it's a hybrid. It has an amazing catalog of games, which Nintendo knocked it out of the park, but also the ability of, docking it up and playing it on your screen, and having the ability of taking it out with you is an amazing thing, and you can get both demographics with one console. But also, the gaming library on the PSPs are awesome. There's so many games that are still out for these PSPs that are still so solid and that look so great. When I look at so many games out there, the graphics of the PSP 2000 were insane. And the fact that it performed better than the original, PSP 1000, and it was, a smaller, slimmer form factor, really showcased what Sony was expecting from a console. They weren't expecting these big, bulky type of consoles to come and not to be as good looking or as functional as before. Sony really killed it from one generation to the other. Unfortunately, with the PSP Go and the PS Vita, they just couldn't get it off the rails. They just couldn't get them marketed right. And I think it's okay, things like that happen. But I will tell you, as I mentioned before, the PSP 2000 is a solid console still. Now, would I recommend buying one? Well, there's a couple reasons why I would recommend buying one. One, if you've never played a PSP before, I would recommend just buying one because they're not that expensive and they have a lot of capability. But beyond that, there were some things, like as I mentioned before with the DS Lite and DSi video, I feel like just like how Bitcoin and all these other things, NFTs are just blowing up out of nowhere, I feel like there's going to be a huge resurgence of people purchasing these older type of consoles, just like with sports cars, just like with anything. And I feel like the more type of devices that you have, it's inevitably going to, appreciate in value as long as you keep it in good condition and as long as you don't brick them or break them or, mod them and, mess them up like crazy. Modding them is fine. But if you mess them up while you're modding them, then that's going to be a whole different story. If you can do that, I think you may be able to, resell your console eventually for a good amount of profit. And that's why I'm keeping my current console. That's why I'm keeping a lot of my phones. I haven't resold them just because I feel like there's going to be a resurgence of these older type of nostalgic type of consoles. If you own the PSP 2000, I would honestly recommend keeping it. But if you want to, I would honestly also recommend going on eBay and buying one if you haven't already. They're not that expensive right now, and you may be able to go ahead and resell it. Now, I don't know 100% fact. I'm only assuming. Don't take my word for it, but they may go up in value, and I think that'd be something that's really cool. So I think in terms of that and an investment standpoint, it's great. But even if not, if you want to go and buy it and just play some games on it, perfect. I think you're going to have a perfect experience on this type of console for sure. So in terms of that pretty much covers up how the PSP 2000 holds up in 2021. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much for you guys to hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.